Very urgent. Your soulmate needs to warn you about something. Please open this now. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, because sometimes the most meaningful warnings are not about danger waiting around the next corner. They are not predictions. They are not mysterious messages from the future. They are gentle reminders that life is precious, relationships require care, and some lessons are easier to learn before regret has a chance to appear. Your soulmate never imagined they would spend an ordinary day thinking so deeply about these things. They woke up expecting nothing unusual. The morning sun slowly filled the room with warm light. Birds greeted the dawn from nearby trees. The neighborhood came alive with familiar sounds. People hurried to work. Children laughed on their way to school. Coffee shops welcomed their first customers. Everything appeared completely ordinary. Yet inside their heart, something felt different. Not fear. Not sadness. Simply a quiet feeling that refused to disappear. And listen to this. As they moved through their morning routine, they found themselves pausing more often than usual. Simple moments suddenly carried unexpected meaning. The warmth of sunlight through a window. A stranger smiling politely. A neighbor holding the door open for someone carrying heavy bags. None of these moments were extraordinary. Yet together they whispered the same gentle reminder. Life is made of ordinary moments. And those ordinary moments become extraordinary when we choose to pay attention. Because your heart needs this right now, because some of life's greatest lessons arrive quietly, hidden inside everyday experiences. Your soulmate couldn't ignore that feeling. And listen to this. Later that morning, they met someone they hadn't seen in a long time. The conversation began with familiar questions. How have you been? How is life? What has changed? At first everything felt light-hearted. Then the conversation shifted. The other person spoke about someone they once cared deeply about. Someone they believed would always be part of their life. But over time, small misunderstandings were never discussed. Kind words were left unsaid. Appreciation was assumed instead of expressed. Eventually, distance quietly replaced closeness. Not because of one dramatic argument. Not because of betrayal. But because important conversations were postponed until there was no opportunity left. Those words settled heavily in your soulmate's heart. Because your heart needs this right now, because relationships are rarely lost in one moment, they often drift apart through many moments of silence. Your soulmate quietly reflected on that truth. And listen to this. Leaving that conversation behind, they decided to take a longer walk than usual. The afternoon breeze moved gently through the trees. Leaves danced across the sidewalk. Children laughed while playing nearby. An elderly couple sat together on a park bench, smiling peacefully without needing many words. Watching them reminded your soulmate of something beautiful. Strong relationships are not built through constant excitement. They are built through consistency. Through showing up. Through listening. Through choosing kindness on ordinary days. That realization stayed with them. Because your heart needs this right now, because trust grows slowly through everyday acts of care. Your soulmate smiled quietly. And listen to this. As they continued walking, they noticed a young child trying to help another child who had fallen while learning to ride a bicycle. There were no cameras. No applause. No audience. Just one small act of kindness offered without expecting anything in return. Watching that simple moment reminded them that compassion doesn't need recognition to matter. The greatest acts of love often happen when no one else is paying attention. Because your heart needs this right now, because kindness is valuable even when it goes unnoticed. Your soulmate carried that lesson with them. And listen to this. Later that afternoon, they found a quiet bench beneath a large tree. The gentle wind cooled the warm afternoon air. Birds moved between the branches overhead. For several peaceful minutes, they simply sat in silence. Without distractions. Without rushing. Without trying to solve every problem. Instead, they asked themselves one simple question. If I could give someone I care about one piece of advice today, what would it be? The answer surprised them. It wasn't about success. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about achievement. It was much simpler. Don't let fear speak louder than love. Those words echoed quietly inside their heart. Because your heart needs this right now, because many of life's greatest regrets begin when fear prevents honest communication. Your soulmate quietly accepted that lesson. And listen to this. As the afternoon slowly became evening, they remembered moments from their own life. Times when they delayed saying thank you. Moments when they assumed someone already knew they were appreciated. Conversations they postponed because they thought tomorrow would always come. Looking back, they realized something important. Tomorrow is a gift. Not a guarantee. That realization didn't make them anxious. It made them grateful. Because your heart needs this right now, because gratitude encourages us to value the present instead of taking it for granted. Your soulmate felt their heart becoming lighter. And listen to this. The sunset painted the sky with beautiful shades of gold, orange, and soft pink. Everything seemed to slow down. The world became quieter. Watching the changing colors reminded them that every day comes to an end. Every season changes. Every opportunity eventually passes. That isn't meant to create fear. It's meant to remind us to live with intention. To speak kindly. To forgive quickly. To appreciate people while they're still beside us. Because your heart needs this right now, because love is strengthened through small moments of intentional care. Your soulmate quietly treasured that realization. And listen to this. Returning home that evening, they reached for an old notebook. One they hadn't opened for many months. Instead of writing about goals or plans, they wrote about values. I want to choose honesty even when it feels uncomfortable. I want to express gratitude more often. I want to listen before making assumptions. I want to encourage people while I still have the chance. I want kindness to become a daily habit rather than an occasional choice. Reading those words back filled them with unexpected peace. Not because life had suddenly become easier, but because they finally understood what mattered most. Because your heart needs this right now, because clarity often comes when we remember our deepest values. Your soulmate smiled softly. And listen to this. As night settled outside, they stood beside the window watching the first stars appear. The silence no longer felt empty. It felt comforting. The warning they wished they could share wasn't about a hidden danger. It wasn't about predicting tomorrow. It wasn't about mysterious signs. It was much more meaningful than that. The warning was simple. Don't allow busyness to replace meaningful conversations. Don't let assumptions replace honest questions. Don't wait for perfect timing before expressing appreciation. Don't allow fear to become louder than compassion. Because your heart needs this right now, because the healthiest relationships grow through intentional communication, patience, and mutual respect. Your soulmate quietly embraced that truth. And listen to this. Before turning off the light, they wrote one final sentence across the bottom of the notebook page. The greatest warning I could ever give isn't about the future. It's about remembering not to neglect the people, values, and moments that matter most today. They slowly closed the notebook. A peaceful smile crossed their face. Tomorrow would still bring uncertainty. Challenges would still come. Questions would still arise. But they no longer wanted to spend their days waiting for the perfect moment. They wanted to choose kindness now. Honesty now. Gratitude now. Because they had learned something that would stay with them forever. The strongest relationships are not built through dramatic moments. They are built through countless ordinary days where people continue choosing patience, respect, empathy, forgiveness, and love. And that became the quiet warning they hoped no one would ever ignore. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, because after that quiet evening of reflection, your soulmate woke with a feeling they could no longer ignore. It wasn't fear. It wasn't panic. It wasn't the belief that something terrible was about to happen. It was something much quieter. A growing awareness that some of life's greatest lessons are learned only after we almost lose sight of what truly matters. And listen to this. The morning arrived wrapped in silence. Golden sunlight slowly crept across the floor. Outside, the birds welcomed another ordinary day. The streets gradually filled with people heading toward work, school, and countless responsibilities. Everything looked exactly as it had the day before. Nothing appeared extraordinary. Yet inside their heart, everything felt different. They couldn't stop thinking about one simple realization. What if the greatest danger isn't what happens to us, but what we quietly allow to happen inside us? That question stayed with them. Because your heart needs this right now, because the habits we ignore today often shape the future more than the events we fear tomorrow. Your soulmate quietly reflected on that truth. And listen to this. While preparing breakfast, they found themselves remembering seasons of life they had almost forgotten. Times when they rushed through each day believing there would always be another opportunity. Another chance to say thank you. Another chance to apologize. Another chance to encourage someone. Another chance to listen. But looking back, they realized life doesn't always repeat opportunities. Sometimes moments quietly pass. Sometimes people move away. Sometimes circumstances change before we expect them to. That realization wasn't meant to create fear. Instead, it filled them with gratitude. Because your heart needs this right now, because appreciation becomes more meaningful when we express it instead of assuming there will always be more time. Your soulmate smiled softly. And listen to this. Later that morning they decided to leave their phone at home. No notifications. No endless scrolling. No distractions. Only a peaceful walk through familiar streets. As they walked, they noticed details they had overlooked countless times before. Flowers blooming beside sidewalks. A baker carefully arranging fresh bread in a shop window. Children laughing while chasing pigeons across a small square. An elderly neighbor waving warmly to everyone who passed. Life had always contained these beautiful moments. They had simply been moving too quickly to notice them. Because your heart needs this right now, because slowing down often allows us to see the blessings that busyness hides. Your soulmate quietly treasured those moments. And listen to this. They arrived at a small park where a gentle breeze moved through the trees. The sunlight filtered through the branches, creating dancing patterns on the ground. Nearby, a father patiently taught his young daughter how to ride a bicycle. She fell. He smiled. He helped her stand again. She tried once more. Watching that simple scene reminded your soulmate of something they would never forget. Real love doesn't disappear when someone stumbles. It stays. It encourages. It patiently helps someone try again. That lesson touched their heart. Because your heart needs this right now, because healthy relationships grow stronger through patience rather than perfection. Your soulmate quietly held on to that thought. And listen to this. As they continued walking, another memory returned. Years ago, someone had offered them advice they hadn't fully understood until now. Protect your heart from becoming so busy that you forget to notice the people beside you. At the time, those words sounded poetic. Now they sounded practical. They realized how easy it is to become distracted by goals, schedules, worries, and endless responsibilities. Not because those things are unimportant, but because they can quietly crowd out the conversations that matter most. Because your heart needs this right now, because success means little if we neglect the relationships that give life its deepest meaning. Your soulmate reflected deeply. And listen to this. By early afternoon they found themselves sitting beneath the shade of a large oak tree. The world around them continued peacefully. Birds moved between branches. Children laughed nearby. A young couple quietly shared lunch together. Nobody seemed to be in a hurry. That peaceful atmosphere invited another important question. When was the last time I truly listened without already planning my response? The answer humbled them. Too often, they had listened only long enough to speak. Too often, they had assumed they already understood. Too often, they had mistaken hearing for listening. That realization became another quiet warning. Because your heart needs this right now, because understanding begins when we listen to learn instead of listening only to reply. Your soulmate quietly accepted that lesson. And listen to this. As afternoon became evening, they remembered several conversations they wished they had handled differently. Not because anyone had been cruel. Not because relationships had ended. But because pride had occasionally spoken louder than humility. There had been moments when an apology could have arrived sooner. Moments when encouragement could have been offered more generously. Moments when silence had replaced honest conversation. Looking back, they realized something beautiful. Growth doesn't erase yesterday. It teaches us how to live differently tomorrow. Because your heart needs this right now, because wisdom grows when we learn from the past instead of becoming trapped inside it. Your soulmate smiled with quiet hope. And listen to this. The sky slowly filled with warm shades of amber and crimson. The setting sun reflected across a nearby pond. Watching the gentle ripples spread across the water reminded them that every word creates its own ripple. One encouraging sentence. One thoughtful apology. One patient conversation. One sincere expression of gratitude. Those small moments travel farther than we often realize. Long after the words are forgotten, people often remember how those moments made them feel. Because your heart needs this right now, because kindness continues working long after the conversation has ended. Your soulmate quietly appreciated that truth. And listen to this. When evening arrived, they returned home carrying a notebook they had almost forgotten on a shelf. Instead of writing about fears, they decided to write about lessons. The page slowly filled with reflections. Don't postpone meaningful conversations. Protect your peace by refusing to rush toward assumptions. Remember that every person carries struggles you cannot always see. Choose gentle words whenever possible. Let gratitude become a daily practice instead of an occasional thought. Reading those sentences brought unexpected comfort. Not because every challenge had disappeared, but because they finally understood the direction they wanted their life to follow. Because your heart needs this right now, because our values become clearer when we write them down and choose to live by them. Your soulmate quietly smiled. And listen to this. As darkness settled outside, they stood beside the window watching stars slowly appear. The room became wonderfully quiet. For the first time in many days, they understood what the warning truly meant. It wasn't warning them about another person. It wasn't warning them about hidden secrets. It wasn't predicting tomorrow. It was reminding them not to allow today's distractions to steal tomorrow's memories. Don't wait too long to encourage someone. Don't wait too long to forgive. Don't wait too long to ask how someone is really doing. Don't wait too long to say, I appreciate you. Because your heart needs this right now, because the strongest relationships are built through countless ordinary moments of care, honesty, and compassion. Your soulmate embraced that message completely. And listen to this. Before closing the notebook, they wrote one final promise. I will never again assume that important words can always be spoken later. I will choose kindness while I have the chance. I will protect trust through honesty. I will listen with patience. And I will remember that love is often revealed through ordinary choices repeated every day. They gently closed the notebook. Peace filled the room. Tomorrow remained unknown. Life would continue bringing new opportunities and new challenges. But they no longer feared missing what mattered most. They had learned that the greatest warning wasn't about a future event. It was about forgetting to fully live, fully listen, and fully love in the present. That lesson became the beginning of a new chapter. One guided not by urgency or fear, but by gratitude, wisdom, empathy, and quiet courage. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, because after everything your soulmate had reflected on, after every quiet morning filled with unanswered questions, after every ordinary moment that suddenly felt meaningful, they reached a realization that would quietly reshape the way they approached every relationship in their life. Not because a mysterious message appeared. Not because they suddenly knew the future. Not because every challenge disappeared overnight. But because they finally understood that the greatest warnings in life are often about the choices we make today, not predictions about tomorrow. And listen to this. The next morning began in complete stillness. The first rays of sunlight slowly stretched across the room. The birds outside welcomed another ordinary day without rushing. A cool breeze drifted through the open window. For several moments, your soulmate simply stood there, watching the world awaken. Nothing extraordinary happened. No dramatic sign appeared. Yet their heart felt lighter than it had in many weeks. Why? Because they had stopped searching for answers they couldn't control and started paying attention to the values they could choose every single day. Because your heart needs this right now, because peace often begins when we stop trying to control every outcome and instead focus on living with honesty, kindness, and wisdom. Your soulmate quietly smiled. And listen to this. As they prepared breakfast, they realized how often people race through life believing that happiness always exists somewhere ahead. We'll spend more time together next month. I'll apologize when things calm down. I'll tell them how much they matter later. But later has a quiet way of becoming another week. Another month. Another year. That thought didn't fill them with fear. It filled them with purpose. Because your heart needs this right now, because love grows strongest when appreciation is expressed today rather than postponed until tomorrow. Your soulmate quietly embraced that lesson. And listen to this. Later that morning, they decided to walk a different route through their neighborhood. The streets were familiar, yet everything seemed new. A florist carefully arranged fresh flowers outside the shop. A baker greeted customers with genuine warmth. Children laughed while chasing one another across a small park. An elderly woman patiently fed birds near a fountain. Every ordinary scene reminded them of something simple. Life is not built from extraordinary events alone. It is built from thousands of small moments that quietly shape our hearts. Because your heart needs this right now, because the quality of our lives is often determined by how fully we notice ordinary blessings. Your soulmates slowed their pace. And listen to this. They stopped beside a small bridge overlooking a gentle stream. The water flowed steadily beneath them. It didn't rush. It didn't stop. It simply continued moving forward. Watching the current reminded them of their own journey. Some seasons had been joyful. Others had been uncertain. Some had brought unexpected disappointment. Others had been filled with quiet gratitude. Yet every season had carried a lesson. Nothing had been completely wasted. Because your heart needs this right now, because even difficult chapters can become valuable teachers when we choose to learn from them. Your soulmate reflected deeply. And listened to this. As the afternoon arrived, they visited the same peaceful park that had become a place of reflection throughout this journey. They found the familiar wooden bench beneath the old oak tree. Children played nearby. Friends laughed together. A father patiently helped his son fly a kite for the first time. The kite struggled to rise. It dipped. It twisted. It nearly touched the ground several times. Yet with patience, encouragement, and another attempt, it finally caught the wind. Watching that simple moment brought another realization. Growth rarely happens perfectly. Progress often includes setbacks. Healthy relationships are no different. They require patience, understanding, gentle correction, encouragement. Because your heart needs this right now, because lasting relationships are strengthened by perseverance rather than perfection. Your soulmate quietly treasured that truth. And listen to this. For several peaceful minutes, they closed their eyes and simply listened. The wind moving through the leaves. Children laughing. Birds singing. The distant sound of someone playing music. The world had always been full of beauty. They had simply forgotten to slow down long enough to hear it. That realization touched them deeply. Because your heart needs this right now, because slowing down often reveals the peace that busyness hides. Your soulmate breathed deeply. And listened to this. Later that afternoon, they opened the notebook that had become their faithful companion through this season of reflection. Instead of writing about fears, they began writing promises. I will choose conversations before assumptions. I will express gratitude before opportunities pass. I will forgive more quickly than I judge. I will remember that everyone carries unseen struggles. I will make kindness my daily habit instead of my occasional choice. Reading those promises filled their heart with hope. Not because life had become easier, but because they finally understood the kind of person they wanted to become. Because your heart needs this right now, because lasting peace comes from living according to our deepest values rather than our strongest fears. Your soulmate quietly smiled. And listened to this. As evening approached, they remembered a conversation from many years earlier. Someone had once asked, "When people remember you years from now, what do you hope they'll remember?" Back then, they had answered with achievements. Goals. Dreams. Success. Now their answer was completely different. I hope people remember that I listened. I hope they remember that I was kind. I hope they remember that I encouraged them. I hope they felt respected whenever we spoke. That answer felt far more meaningful. Because your heart needs this right now, because our greatest legacy is often the way we make others feel, not the accomplishments we collect. Your soulmate quietly embraced that truth. And listen to this. As sunset painted the sky with shades of gold, orange, and violet, they watched the changing colors without reaching for their phone. Without distractions. Without rushing to the next task. For the first time in a long while, they simply allowed themselves to be fully present. The beauty of the moment required nothing from them except attention. And that was enough. Because your heart needs this right now, because some of life's richest moments are experienced when we stop trying to hurry through them. Your soulmate felt a quiet peace. And listen to this. Returning home, they lit a small lamp and opened the notebook one final time before bed. Across a fresh page, they carefully wrote, "The greatest warning I have received wasn't about the future. It was the reminder not to become so distracted that I forget what matters most. Relationships deserve time. Kindness deserves action. Gratitude deserves words. Love deserves presence." Reading those lines brought tears to their eyes. Not tears of sadness. Not tears of regret. But tears of gratitude. Because they realized they still had the opportunity to live differently beginning today. Because your heart needs this right now, because every new day offers another chance to become the person we hope to be. Your soulmate quietly closed the notebook. And listen to this. Before turning off the light, one final realization settled gently into their heart. The warning they wished everyone could hear wasn't about hidden danger. It wasn't about predicting tomorrow. It wasn't about fear. It was this. Don't let busyness steal your relationships. Don't let pride delay an apology. Don't let assumptions replace honest conversations. Don't let gratitude remain unspoken. Don't let fear become louder than compassion. Those simple reminders became the foundation for every decision they hoped to make moving forward. Not because life would suddenly become perfect, but because they had finally chosen the values that would guide them through every imperfect season. The room grew quiet. The stars filled the night sky. Tomorrow remained unknown. Yet they no longer feared what tomorrow might bring. They trusted that every act of honesty, patience, forgiveness, empathy, and kindness would continue building the kind of life, and the kind of relationships, that truly matter. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, because after every quiet morning of reflection, after every ordinary moment that unexpectedly became meaningful, after every lesson patiently written across the days that followed, your soulmate finally arrived at a realization that changed the way they viewed love, trust, and life itself. Not because a mysterious sign appeared. Not because someone predicted the future. Not because every unanswered question suddenly disappeared. But because they finally understood that the greatest warnings are rarely about what might happen tomorrow. They are about what we quietly overlook today. And listen to this. The final morning began with remarkable peace. Sunlight slowly filled the room. The soft breeze moved the curtains. Birds welcomed another ordinary day. The neighborhood awakened one familiar sound at a time. Nothing extraordinary happened. Yet everything felt different. Only a few days earlier, their thoughts had been filled with endless questions. Now those questions had been replaced with quiet gratitude. Not because life had become easier, but because they had become wiser. Because your heart needs this right now, because wisdom often grows slowly through ordinary experiences that teach us what truly deserves our attention. Your soulmate quietly smiled. And listen to this. They prepared a simple breakfast and sat beside the window without reaching for distractions. No phone. No television. No endless stream of notifications. Only silence. For the first time in a long while, they allowed themselves to simply be present. Watching the morning unfold reminded them of something beautiful. The sun never rushes. The seasons never compete. Flowers bloom in their own time. Nature isn't anxious about tomorrow. Perhaps people were never meant to rush through life either. Perhaps they were meant to notice it. Because your heart needs this right now, because peace often begins when we slow down enough to appreciate what has always been there. Your soulmate treasured that thought. And listen to this. Later that morning they returned once more to the familiar walking path that had become a place of reflection throughout this journey. Every step felt lighter than before. The baker smiled as customers entered the shop. Children laughed while racing one another across a nearby playground. A cyclist stopped to help someone whose bag had fallen onto the sidewalk. Small acts of kindness quietly unfolded everywhere. Most people hardly noticed them. Yet your soulmate did. Because they had learned that love rarely announces itself with dramatic speeches. More often, it appears through ordinary people choosing compassion in ordinary moments. Because your heart needs this right now, because the strongest expressions of care are often found in simple, everyday choices. Your soulmate quietly carried that lesson forward. And listen to this. Eventually they arrived at the peaceful park that had witnessed so much of their reflection. The old oak tree still stretched its branches across the bench below. The gentle breeze moved through the leaves. The afternoon sunlight filtered softly across the grass. They sat down and looked around without speaking. Nearby, a young child offered half of a sandwich to another child who had forgotten lunch. Across the path, two old friends laughed over stories they had probably shared many times before. An elderly couple slowly walked hand in hand. Nothing extraordinary. Nothing dramatic. Yet every scene quietly repeated the same lesson. Love continues showing up. Kindness continues choosing. Patience continues waiting. Forgiveness continues healing. Because your heart needs this right now, because relationships become extraordinary through thousands of ordinary moments shared with sincerity. Your soulmate quietly closed their eyes. And listen to this. As they rested beneath the tree, they remembered every lesson this journey had taught them. They remembered believing that urgency always meant danger. Now they understood that sometimes urgency simply means remembering what matters before distraction steals our attention. They remembered thinking the greatest risk was making the wrong decision. Now they realized the greater risk was allowing fear, pride, or busyness to keep important words forever unspoken. That understanding brought deep peace. Because your heart needs this right now, because many of life's deepest regrets come not from what we said with kindness, but from the kindness we never expressed. Your soulmate accepted that truth wholeheartedly. And listen to this. The afternoon slowly faded toward evening. Golden sunlight painted everything with warmth. Looking at the changing sky, another realization quietly entered their heart. Every sunset reminds us that another day has ended. Not to make us afraid, but to remind us that every day is an opportunity. An opportunity to forgive. An opportunity to encourage. An opportunity to appreciate. An opportunity to truly listen. Every ordinary day offers another chance to strengthen the relationships that matter most. Because your heart needs this right now, because meaningful relationships are built through daily choices rather than occasional grand gestures. Your soulmate smiled gently. And listen to this. Before returning home, they paused beside a calm lake. The surface reflected the evening sky like a mirror. Only an occasional ripple disturbed the water. Watching those ripples slowly disappear reminded them of their own heart. Fear had once created endless waves of uncertainty. Now those waves had settled. Clarity had quietly returned. Not because every question had an answer, but because they had learned which values would guide them regardless of what tomorrow might bring. Honesty, kindness, patience, humility, gratitude. Those values became their anchor. Because your heart needs this right now, because lasting peace comes from living according to our values instead of reacting to every fear. Your soulmate quietly embraced that truth. And listen to this. When evening arrived, they returned home and opened the notebook one final time. Every page told the story of a changing heart. The first pages were filled with questions. The middle pages with reflection. The final pages with gratitude. They slowly turned to the last blank page. After several quiet moments, they began writing. I will choose conversations before assumptions. I will never become too busy to appreciate the people I love. I will listen with empathy before offering opinions. I will remember that everyone carries unseen burdens. I will let kindness become the habit that shapes every ordinary day. They paused. Read the words again. Then added one final promise. Whenever fear tells me to withdraw, I will remember that compassion builds stronger bridges than silence ever could. Those sentences became more than notes. They became a way of living. Because your heart needs this right now, because the person we become is shaped by the promises we keep to ourselves every day. Your soulmate quietly closed the notebook. And listen to this. Night gently settled across the sky. The stars slowly appeared one after another. Standing beside the window, they reflected on the title of this story. At first it seemed to promise a mysterious warning. But in the end, the warning was wonderfully simple. Don't let busyness replace presence. Don't let fear replace wisdom. Don't let assumptions replace conversations. Don't let gratitude remain unspoken. Don't let pride become stronger than love. Those reminders became the greatest gift they could carry into every new chapter of life. Because your heart needs this right now, because the healthiest relationships are built through honesty, respect, forgiveness, empathy, and intentional care. Your soulmate felt complete peace. And listen to this. Before turning off the light, they wrote one final message across the very last page. The greatest warning I ever received wasn't about the future. It was the reminder that today's choices quietly become tomorrow's memories. Choose patience while there's still time. Choose forgiveness before resentment grows. Choose gratitude before opportunities pass. Choose honest conversations before silence creates distance. Choose kindness, even when no one is watching. They gently closed the notebook. The room became still. The journey that began with urgency had ended with wisdom. Not because life had become perfect, but because they had learned that the greatest peace comes from living each day with integrity, compassion, and purpose. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new conversations, new opportunities. But they were no longer afraid of what tomorrow might hold. They trusted that every act of honesty, every patient response, every thoughtful conversation, and every quiet expression of love would continue building a life filled with deeper trust and stronger relationships.